you with information throughout. So just a little bit of background. The impetus for these webinars started several years back when adult education administrators wanted to have an opportunity and a place where they could come together on a dime's notice and really talk about the hot topics that were happening in the field and engage with their peers in a way in which they could think through, talk through, and work on strategies that help them with developing, managing, sustaining, and growing their adult education programs. And we have continued that series, and the feedback continues to be well, that the topics that have been identified really speak to what the needs are of those in the field. So I am going to turn over to Vicki at this point. She's going to go through some of the technical support pieces that you need to be aware of, and then she will turn it back over to me as we get started. Vicki.
Thank you, Charisse. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. Again, my name is Vicki Swindell. We're just going to go through a few items here in Adobe Connect for those of you who may be unfamiliar with navigating. So if we will be communicating with each other via the chat box. In the top right corner of the chat box, you will, at the top of your screen, you will see an icon with a little person with their hand in the air. If you click on that icon, the drop-down menu will appear, and you have the opportunity to raise your hand, agree, disagree, so on, so you can communicate with your facilitator. Just a reminder that when you do click on that icon, it will appear to the right of your name in the presenter box, and it does act as a toggle switch. So, for example, if you raise your hand, once you've been addressed, please click on it again, and it will disappear. Okay, and as I mentioned before, we will be communicating via chat pod. In the top right corner of the chat pod, there's another drop-down button. If you click on that, you have the option of choosing to communicate with everybody who is in the webinar today, which it defaults, or if you would like to communicate directly with an individual, be it your facilitator or another participant in the webinar, you can choose to do so. Okay, and to do so, as many of you are probably familiar, at the bottom of the chat box you will see a text box. Just type in your message, and you can either hit the enter button or the bubble to the right to send your chat. Okay, and just as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded. At the conclusion, the recording will be posted on the CalPro website within 24 to 48 hours. And if you have any questions whatsoever during this webinar, if you have any need technical support, please feel free to email me directly at vswindell@air.org. Okay, and with that, I will turn it back over to Charisse. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Vicki. And we are going to keep moving right ahead and get started. The webinar today is being facilitated by two amazing administrators in our field who really have great examples of successful reentry programs, and they're going to be sharing with you their stories and the lessons learned along with the challenges and opportunities that have made their programs what they are today. So first I want to introduce Lindy Kahn. She is the Senior Director for the Student Support or Student Programs area within Contra Costa County Office of Education. And joining her today we have Karen Williams, who is the Executive Director for Learning Quest, the Stanislaus Literacy Center. And they are both proud CalPro Professional Advisory Board members, and they bring their expertise in this area to us today to help us understand two different programs, one a nonprofit program, one through County Office of Education, and how they have helped our students with successful reentry. We hope that you will benefit greatly from their presentation, and I'm going to turn it over to the two of them to get started now. Lindy, I'll start with you.
Okay. Thank you, Cherise, and good afternoon, everyone. Since we are going to be talking about the impact of AB 109 today, we'd like to start off by asking everyone if you've heard of it, and if so, what do you know about it? So please take a moment to respond to this poll that we have for you, and to write your comments under in the chat box. We'll give you a minute to do that. Actually, you're not going to put your comments in the chat box, but to the right of the screen where it says, what do you know about it? That's where you can chat in your information. Well, it looks like most of you, or about half of you, have heard of it. But it seems like something about reduced sentencing, that's true. Well, good. We are going to tell you a little bit more about this. Oh, here's a few more comments. Yes, it is about realignment. Inmates doing prison time in their county facilities, that's exactly true. There's been a lot more funding available of late, that's also true. But some people are saying they're just not very clear about the details. So what I'm going to do is start off by talking about how AB 109 was implemented in Contra Costa County, and then I think Karen can give some examples from Stanislaus County. So I think we'll get started. Thank you for your participation. So AB 109 was passed in 2011, and with that, the responsibility for offenders charged with lower level offenses, meaning nonviolent, non-serious, non-sexual offenses, the responsibility for housing them was transferred from prisons to county jails, and the supervision of parolees went from parole agents to county probation officers. A significant amount of AB 109 funding got funneled to counties who were charged with creating a countywide collaborative to determine how best to serve this population both in the jails and upon reentry. Additionally, the new Prison to Employment Initiative, which is very recently allocated funds just last year, that is providing funds to regional workforce development boards with the charge to develop a plan on how to accelerate access to employment for the formerly incarcerated. So as you go through this webinar with us, you might want to think about how to develop or expand relationships and partnerships in support of this work in your local area. First, we'd like to provide you with some information about our two programs. So at this time, I will turn it over to Karen Williams.
Thank you, Lindy, and it's great to be here. I'm Karen Williams. I am the Executive Director of Learning Quest, and we have been working with our county jail system for decades, actually. And in 1987, we first started providing programming in the county jail for literacy. and later added high school equivalency and ESL. Our inmate welfare funds is who is paying for that, and our funds, go to the next slide, our funds come from when the inmates make phone calls, or now it's video calls, or when they buy things in the commissary. If there's a profit, it has to be used for things which are not required by law for our sheriff's department to provide. And so they have chosen to use the money to provide programs. And so there are two organizations, and we're one of those two that receive the funding to do just that. So we use it for education, high school equivalency, literacy, and ESL that we provide to the inmates, and we have several instructors that work in the jail system providing that. We also, in about 2008, started working in what was a brand new day reporting center that the probation opened. It was kind of an experiment. It was in one of their former substation buildings. They just brought together a few partners and started trying to provide some programs that would keep people from going back to jail, was their hope. And it was kind of an alternative to incarceration, trying to bring down the number of those people being incarcerated by putting them on probation and having a place they went during the day and reported and got programs. So we were involved with that from about 2008. And they moved a couple of times and finally moved to their current state-of-the-art building where since AB 109 was implemented, they have a really nice facility for providing programs to probationers. And so we are part of that building. When AB 109 happened, many inmates and probationers came into our county jail system, and they had to add facilities. And they have added 4 large facilities in the jail plus the day reporting center, and are housing a lot more inmates. So we started working with the Community Corrections Partnership, which is our local body that decides how the money is spent that comes from the state. And that body decided to put out some grants. And so we got a small grant for the first 2 years that was just about helping the people we'd already started working with while they were incarcerated, once they were released, to finish up the education they had started inside. So it was really still about adult education, getting their diploma or working on literacy or ESL once they were released. So we started doing that and had some success with the students that got released and came and worked with us and graduated. We also started providing a little bit of transitions for those particular people, that, especially the ones who got their high school diploma. We started saying, what do you want to do next? And then helping them get enrolled in college or working on their career in a very one-on-one, very small number of people were served that way. So then they came out with another RFP, and we said, we want to do more with this. So we decided we wanted to start that process of transitions while they were still incarcerated, and then continue it once they were released. And so they funded us to do that. So last year, this past year, we have been funded to provide what we call Transitions to Freedom program that works with the inmates to successfully get them from incarceration to a living wage job. And this kind of goes along with our mission statement, because it says we want adults to be empowered. We want them to, through educational services, to improve their self-reliance for their family, and that's what Transitions is about. We want them not only to get that education and diploma, but we want them to get a living wage job. And I'm now going to ask Josh Cruz, who is our program manager for our Transitions Department, to share with you some of the logistics of that. He knows a whole lot more about how we do the day-to-day than I do, so I asked him to be part of this webinar. He has several staff who work with the people who are incarcerated and through release, and he also oversees staff that are working in our learning center and helping our HSE high school equivalency students to transition successfully as well. So here's Josh.
All right, thank you, Karen. So in addition to providing the high school equivalency program at the correctional facility, we also offer the transitions program. And basically our goal is that upon release, participants would be able to transition back into their community by finding employment, enrolling in college, or even continuing in the program that's assigned to them and required by the court. So inside the county jail, a few of the programs that we offer: career readiness, college readiness, and money management. Our career readiness course is focused on resume building, mock interviews, teaching them about workplace etiquette, and making sure that they're ready to re-enter the workforce. Our college readiness course can actually walk them through what college life is like, what financial aid is, and how they can obtain it, as well as building their class schedules and really preparing them for college so that once they're released, they're able to just make a smooth transition. In our last class, the money management class, focuses on rebuilding credit, budgeting, investing, and kind of getting to a place where they can be financially stable. The way that our clients become part of our program is the first thing they do is they meet with deputies for an assessment, and these deputies determine which programs are best for them. Once they're selected from our program, they begin to meet with one of our staff members, the transition specialist, to create a strategic plan. These strategic plans are basically just an outline of action steps and necessary goals so that they can actually reach where they want to go. Once they create this, participants begin attending one of our courses, one of the three that I outlined, and they begin to work with our staff to complete that. The participant continues to work with them until basically they're employed or until they enroll in college and they're there for a whole semester. So we walk them through from day one in the class, in the facility, to the moment they're released. And once they're released, we continue to work with them until they either are employed for 90 days or they complete their first semester. At that point, we continue to monitor them about every 3 months, every 6 months. We'll do a check-in. We'll have them come in and speak to us if they need any help registering for the next semester of college or whatever they need with their career. We help them with that as well. So that's our process. The next thing I wanted to talk about is just a few of the statistics and achievements we've had in this program. Just in fiscal year 2018-2019, we've had 35 participants who have earned their high school equivalency inside the correctional facility. We've also had 95 participants who completed the college workshop, 119 participants who completed the career workshop, 115 participants who completed the money management workshop. 20 of those who were released have accepted employment, and 6 of those who were released have completed their first semester in college. We're really proud of an achievement we have with working with the chain of command at the Sheriff's Department and the Probation Department to really adapt to their policies and their procedures to make things a lot smoother for our programs and for our participants who are in our programs.
As you can see, we have had a successful first year. We're looking forward already to our second year and what things we need to change and modify to be even more successful in the coming year. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Lindy. She's going to tell you what's going on in Contra Costa County and how they're running their program.
Thank you, Karen. So much like what Karen mentioned, in Contra Costa County, one of the first things that happened was the creation of the Community Corrections Partnership. In our county, this was the culmination of actually engaging over 200 people in a strategic planning process around the issue of reentry. So through this, multiple agencies throughout the county have a role to play now in working together to both improve and expand the types of reentry services that are available. All of the key agencies in the county are involved, including our County Office of Education, although we have not received any funding from the AB 109 as yet. We have other funding streams, which I will talk about later. Since we already had a robust school program in the county jails, the focus for us was on services for inmates returning to the community. Through the Community Corrections Partnership, a reentry center a physical location with a variety of service providers was created in the western part of our county. We're pretty geographically spread out. But in the central and east part of our county, a reentry network of service providers was established. So it's not an actual physical structure, but a network of providers who take referrals as appropriate. So our county office has been providing educational programs in the county jail for decades, much like what Karen said in Stanislaus County. We've actually been working in the jail since the early 1980s. But in 1991, this particular facility opened up, and it is the largest of the three facilities. We have the main jail in Martinez. We have a minimum security, very small facility out in Clayton. It's called Marsh Creek. But this facility is unique because it was actually designed and built to be a program facility. So it has a significant area devoted to school with a school office and multiple classrooms. The primary funding for our school comes from the state. It's actually through this, now it's actually, believe it or not, through LCFF. But, and although we are no longer funded based on our ADA, our revenue has been frozen at the 2012-13 level that we received, which has been a challenge for us. But fortunately, another similarity between us and Stanislaus County, apparently, is that we also, our school is also supported by a grant from inmate welfare, and we also have WIOA, a small WIOA grant. The big change for us came in 2015 when, as members of our Adult Ed Consortium, we're actually members of the steering committee, we actually received an allocation from this consortium. And this enabled us to expand in ways to support transition services like we had not been able to do before. So we have been providing, as I said, education in the jail for a long time, but it wasn't until we received this additional funding from the consortium that we had the resources needed to enhance our transition services and to create new partnerships. Our long relationship with the Office of the Sheriff works because of many key things that we have to always keep in mind. Number one, we respect their role in maintaining security. We understand the need to play by the rules that we are guests in their facilities. All of our school staff are trained on all the safety and security protocols, and we require that everyone reads either the book Games Criminals Play or Teaching on the Inside in order to understand how easy it is to fall prey to manipulation. One of the challenges that we have frequently encountered, or I have particularly over the years, is with teachers in particular, but it can also apply to other staff, is to understand their limits to the teacher-student interactions. You know, teachers, of course, want to establish a positive relationship with their students. However, it must be strictly professional, and they are not allowed to share any personal information at any time. It's also essential that they maintain clear boundaries at all times. So one of my key lessons learned is to be wary of teachers who are interested in working in the jail because they have a strong interest in criminal justice reform. While I and other colleagues may also acknowledge the injustices in the system, the role of the teacher in a correctional setting is not to promote that message for sure, nor are they in a position to make those types of changes. In fact, this attitude can often lead to behaviors that result in the loss of their clearance. So consequently, this is something that we talk about in interviews for any person that we're going to hire to work in the jail setting, just so that we're all abundantly clear. And they get off to a positive start. So this is our mission statement. We recently went through a very lengthy strategic planning process for our own school program, and for the first time in years revised it. But our mission statement always has been about transitioning back to the community. But our services up until recently ended when the students that we worked with were released. So, and that has always been one of our main challenges. Listed here are the class options that we offer. All of these here are offered to both the men and the women at the West County Detention Facility. The construction technology is a program only offered at the minimum security facility. And in our main jail in Martinez, we only offer independent study. We will soon have an OSHA certification class offered by one of our community colleges. I should mention that our computer applications classes are articulated with one of our community colleges. We do have students who earn credit while they're with us. They apply to, they can fill out the application for the college. And another thing that's, I think, a little bit maybe different about Contra Costa County is that through our consortium work, the Adult Ed Consortium, each of the community colleges also have a transition specialist. And so our reentry transition specialists work closely with them. Other classes are, we're hoping to add some additional CTE classes in the future, particularly food service. And our teachers are going through this Integrated Education and Training Community of Practice this spring with the idea that we want to create some new more blended options or types of accelerated learning. Here's our student demographics. The jail population for us has been declining over the years as we have more community-based alternatives. We also recently discontinued our contract with ICE, Immigration Services, so that we saw a large exodus of our ESL population. But we still serve approximately 2,000 to 3,000 students each year. Our student population is pretty consistently about 80% male and 20% female, with the majority between the ages of 20 and 45. Similar to most criminal justice populations, the percent of African Americans and Hispanics are disproportionately represented. Though African Americans represent 9.5% of the county's population, they comprise about 23% in the jail. Similarly, Hispanic Latinos represent nearly 18% of county residents, but 29% of the jail population. One of our other significant challenges is the itinerant nature of the population and the short length of stay. Interestingly, with AB 109, we really thought that that might change. It hasn't changed the average length of stay by much. We do have some individuals that are with us for longer periods of time. Next, we want to talk about the importance of relationships, and at this time, I'm going to turn it back to Karen.
Thank you, Lindy. I really enjoyed hearing about the work you guys are doing in Contra Costa County, and I think it's amazing that we are really working toward reducing recidivism rates and that we have these positive approaches to that. One of the biggest important pieces of what you need to do to be successful with reentry is building trust. And we're going to hit it from two different angles. One is with the sponsoring agency and one is with the inmates. So I'm going to address the sponsoring agency part because that's who I work with the most diligently. So one of the things that I've found is go to lots of meetings. I know we don't look forward to meetings, but over the years, as I said, I've been working with the Sheriff's Department. Actually, personally, for 22 years I've been working with them. And so I've been in lots and lots of meetings with them. I got to know the facility commanders because of inmate welfare meetings. They all come to those. And so if I have questions or needs, they know who I am, I know who they are. I can address it one-on-one with them, or at least I can tell them I'm going to be emailing them about something, and they'll know to look for that email. So it's really a great opportunity for me to put a face to our organization, and they know that they can come to me if there's any issues that need addressed. The other thing I've learned that's important is I need to work within the chain of command. I have to admit, when I first started in this job, I tended to jump rank sometimes, and sometimes that would come back and be a problem. So I've learned to start with the sergeant, because there's always a program sergeant in our county, to try to work with things. Sometimes he wants me to work directly with the deputy who is under his command. So I do that if that's the starting place that's most appropriate. But it's just important because chain of command is so important to law enforcement. They don't really appreciate it if you don't use it. So we really try to do that. A lot of times my staff, Josh, or my program director over the instructional part, will work with the deputy or the sergeant first. But even when I have to be involved, I'll start with them, and then I'll work my way up if I need to. But I think that's really important. And the other thing that I found is important is we've had situations where our staff have not always followed the rules the way they should have. And if they break the rules, they generally lose their jail pass or at least get a very stern warning. And I went to bat for an employee I shouldn't have once, and as soon as I really got all the facts, I immediately backed down, and I probably shouldn't have even gone to bat for them until I knew all the facts. So sometimes you really need to slow down and listen and make sure you know everything that's going on, and apologize much quicker than you go to bat, because it's more important that you're saying, hey, we take this seriously, we want to work with your staff, we want to make sure that we're doing what we need to do. So you have to really judge that as it happens, but be quicker to take responsibility is my advice, because I learned the hard way. I've had all of the sheriffs I've had to work with over the years have been very accommodating and respectful of our organization and wanting to help us. That's been a great place, a sweet spot to be in, where they know who your organization is and they trust you and they want to work with you. And so I really value that, and I try not to take advantage of it. I'm going to have Josh now talk about building trust on the inside, because that is equally important.
So I believe one of the most important things is that we follow through with what we're saying we're going to do. When we explain to our participants that we provide certain services to them, I think we have to make sure we follow through, showing them that we'll actually be there, that we're actually going to do what we said we were going to do in the first place is important. A lot of our participants in these programs come from very unstable backgrounds, and so we have to kind of be the people who are stable and follow through with what we say. We also need to provide a clear plan and expectation for each client. We have to understand that a lot of our clients, once again, are not the best at organizing or following through with things, so creating that clear plan and letting them know what's expected of them will go a long ways in helping them to really move forward and progress through a program. And consistently reach out to clients to ensure that they're progressing through our program, being available, reaching out and not allowing them just to float away, not just waiting until something bad happens to respond, but instead calling them, showing them that you're available, showing them that you're still focused on helping them and providing the services you said you would. And then also focusing on what works and being willing to remove what is not working. Understanding that every client is different, we can't just treat every single one the same, but we have to understand their needs and any roadblocks they may have and be willing to adapt to that so that we can help them to be successful in what they're doing.
Along the same lines as the building trust, with the sponsoring agency, please remember that law enforcement and probation are naturally not going to trust you because that's just their nature. They are going to be slow to trust. Let's just put it that way. Because they're dealing all day long with people who are trying to manipulate them and lying to them, and so you have to make sure that you understand that this isn't going to come easy for them. And it really does sometimes take years and time to prove yourself. And when you have staff that don't follow the rules, it really can make it difficult, and it sometimes can make you look bad as an organization. So going back to what Lindy said, when you're choosing your staff, choose wisely and well. We have found that we do better if we go slow in the hiring process and really find that right fit. We don't always do it right, and so then we quickly try to make sure we adjust if we've chosen the wrong person and if they're not going to be a good fit with that population, then we try to maybe move them to a different position in our company if that's possible. We don't want to burn a bridge because we chose a staff member who wasn't going to be the right fit. So those are things that are definitely a challenge, and you want to do the best you can. I think really having good supervisors on the ground inside the facility watching the interactions of the staff with the inmates and kind of what's going on in the classes is super important to being on top of that before. You don't really want to find out from the sheriff's department that your staff is messing up. You would really like it to come from their supervisor who noticed it themselves. That doesn't always happen, but I'm saying that's ideal. So the more that you can provide that supervision of your staff, the better for you.
With our participants, with the inmates, I believe we have to just help them to understand why we're there and what we're there to do. A lot of the time they can just see us as part of the system. Sometimes they'll even really mistake us for being part of law enforcement, being part of the sheriff's department or the probation department. So really explaining to them when you introduce yourself who you are, where you're from, and what your intentions are and how you can help them and how you want to help them. Also, another challenge we've had is that some of the other agencies that work with the inmates don't always follow through with their promises, and it kind of hinders the trust that is built with our participants because they're not sure if we're just telling them something or if we're really going to follow through. So communication is key. Sometimes it's not on purpose, it's really innocent, but we must be knowledgeable about the available resources that are available. We never want to tell somebody that something's available, but then it turns out that it's not available anymore, and they're let down and discouraged because of that. So follow through and be knowledgeable is very important. I also want to talk about some of the resources that are provided on the outside and some of the partnerships we have. We, first of all, provide a welcoming center. Our learning center is a downtown location. It's away from other law enforcement agencies. It's kind of a place where they can come and feel welcome without the pressure of messing up or the pressure of any type of stigma they have. So it's an awesome time where they could just come in, meet with our transition team, talk about their goals, go over their plan once again and kind of move forward with that. We also collaborate with other organizations in the community. We work with providers such as Leaders in Community Alternatives, which they provide job readiness services. They help to provide the equipment needed for our clients who need equipment to go to work. They also provide certain classes and trainings, certification that can help them to learn a trade and to find the work with it. We partner with Series Adult School. They provide job training for free or for a low cost, and this helps our clients or our participants to get back into the work field and have something that they really look forward to doing. We work with Nirvana. They provide substance abuse treatment centers, and they help us with a lot of our participants who struggle or have struggled in the past with substance abuse. And we also work with the Gospel Mission. They provide housing, substance abuse treatment, and different programs to help all of our participants to stay out and to hopefully just improve in their life. Some of the challenges that we see on the outside, they come with loss of contact and accountability. We work with a lot of clients whose numbers are disconnected, and we can't get a hold of them, or maybe their address changed, maybe they moved or no longer have a residence, they're transient. So this can be a challenge that we tend to face. Also providing coaching and the motivation for our clients who are sometimes unstable. Maybe they never came up in a background that's so structured, and so it's hard for them at times to really stay on that track. So providing that coaching, motivating them, reminding them of why they're doing this, it helps a lot. Helping our clients to have a clear step-by-step plan, understanding what step they need to take next, giving them the responsibility and the expectation of what they need to do before our next meeting, before our next check-in, helps them a lot to stay on track. And also, we're competing with a lot of distractions. We're competing with kids that they have at home. We're competing with trying to find a job, the pressures of probation officers, trying to get them through their programs or whatever it may be. So we're constantly competing, and so working with them to have a clear plan and show them that they're able to do it does help a lot with those challenges that they'll face on the outside.
And I'm going to conclude our part of this by saying, again, I'm sorry, skip that. Partnerships are really key to getting the resources you need to help your program thrive. And again, meetings is a great place where that happens. The Community Corrections Partnership, as Lindy referred to all her partners that she has through that, is one of the key places that you find that. Inmate welfare, other agencies funded by them is another key place. And we've set up a lot of one-on-one meetings, or our team will go travel to one of the resources and meet with them and talk through the logistics of how we refer, how they refer to us. I think sitting across the table from each other is the best way there is to getting that in place. So I really encourage you to look for those partners, communicate well with them, and work together as a community to solve this problem. I'm going to let Lindy have it back.
Thank you, Karen. First of all, I just want to say absolutely ditto to everything that Karen and Josh articulated with regard to how to build trust and the focus on security. They're truly words of wisdom that ring true in my world as well. I see that some folks are interested in me mentioning the names of the books again. And so the books are called Games Criminals Play. That's a larger book that we haven't used for a while because the teaching on the inside, I mean, I love the book Games Criminals Play, but it's just a little bit harder for people to get through, whereas Teaching on the Inside is a paperback, pretty small, quick read, but really has the same kind of content. I apologize for not remembering the names of the authors, but they are readily available on Amazon. One other thing quickly I just wanted to say about the hiring process, because that is so critical, is that because it takes a long time for folks to get cleared to go into the jail, you really want to try to get it right from the get-go. So one thing that we started doing actually in all of our programs now, but even in our institutional programs, is we require people to come in and do a demonstration lesson for teachers in particular. If it's not a teacher, we require them to come in and visit just to make sure it is the right type of placement for them, because it's not for everybody. So I'm going to talk about our reentry transition services. As I mentioned, about 2 years ago, we were able to hire our first reentry transition specialist. And at this time, we worked with the Sheriff's Department and our partners to create a pre-release pilot with this person taking the lead. This work required partnering with multiple agencies, CBOs, employers, programs, etc. And I will tell you that having the right person is absolutely the key to making this work. Fortunately, we hit the jackpot with Jana. She immediately established credibility with the deputy staff and other department colleagues. And she is so well respected because of her dependability, her being responsive to their requests in a timely manner, and always following through with commitments, much the same things that Josh was mentioning and Karen was mentioning as ways to build trust. And it's also important to gain the trust of the inmates. You have to establish a rapport with them from the beginning in order for them to be willing to work with you, because we have to remember that inmates volunteer for school, or they volunteer to work on their transition plans. We cannot mandate that. And they have come to trust Jana because she's providing a valuable service. And as I said, she's credible, reliable, fully prepared when she meets with them, and results oriented. And additionally, she has developed key partnerships on the inside and the outside geared towards the variety of the vast array of inmates' transition needs. This is just a snapshot of what our early picture of our AB 109 pre-release pilot looked like and how inmates would flow through the system. But basically, it's having multiple departments come together so that we're no longer working in silos. The school has assumed the leadership role in this. And the challenge in working with multiple partners, of course, is always finding common time. But we have found ways. Yes, you need to develop relationships through meetings, but we try to limit the meetings that we have, only meet when necessary, and make sure that they are very focused and efficient when we're collaborating. The actual release dates of the people that we're working with in the jail are often not known, and they can be released suddenly. So as a school, our philosophy really is to focus on, well, through this pilot, I should say, we try to work with those individuals who have an identified release date, certainly those who are expected to be returning to the community, not expected to go to prison. It's available to both men and women, of course, meeting with them separately. Early on, we identify their primary need, which may be housing, drug treatment, employment, education, etc., because that's going to determine who takes on the case management of that individual. Orientation is held weekly, and if their primary need is mental health, usually someone from Detention Health Services will serve as the case manager, because it's really essential in those cases that they make the arrangements for the doctor's appointments or their prescriptions prior to the inmate being released. I'm happy to say that this pilot will soon be renamed and institutionalized as an ongoing program. So the philosophy in our school is that reentry does begin on intake, and it's the focus in every class, not just through our transitions specialists. Inmates/students are encouraged to identify what it is that they will need to be successful upon release. And you know, the teachers all adapt their curriculum to respond to that. We are, I didn't mention, but we are a high school equivalency test center as well, so we administer both the GED and the HiSET, and sometimes that becomes the primary goal, and then there are secondary goals. But whatever it is that they need most is what we try to focus on first. And sometimes, you know, if they need to work on substance abuse education while improving their academics, they can do things, they can take multiple courses at the same time. We're very fortunate that because we were able to identify some key successes early on in the pre-release pilot with the use of the transition specialist, probation actually stepped up and offered to provide us funding for a second RTS, which has allowed us to expand the service to the other 2 jail facilities. Oops. So this is a copy of the transition brochure that's available to all inmates when they enter the facility, and it describes how to access transition services. We also have another one that talks about our other school programs, which I didn't really get into here. And of course, having a positive relationship with the deputies is essential because they serve as the first point of contact. So we try really hard to make sure they are aware of all that is available, and try to, and hopefully they are supportive of the school, and usually are, and that they will encourage inmates to access services. This can be an ongoing challenge because of the frequent turnover and rotation of deputies. but our staff does make a concerted effort to find positive opportunities to interact with the deputies as often as possible. Primarily through the work of the transition specialists, relationships have been established with all of the program partners listed on this brochure, and actually quite a bit more. So one of the things that we have found to be a really best practice, successful thing is to offer these job/resource fairs. We've done this both in the jail as well as in our parolee education program across the state. In the case of the jail job resource fairs, we have found that our Workforce Development Board has been absolutely instrumental in helping us to make connections with the fair chance employers in our county. We've only had a total of 3 job fairs to date, but the plan is to hold these twice a year at West County, the largest facility, and Marsh Creek, the minimum security facility. Tomorrow, there'll be one in West County, and the one in Marsh Creek is slated to happen on April 11th. We've had employers return after, so I should say a word about how they get to the job fair. This isn't just open to all the inmates. They have to apply to attend. They have to fill out an application. They also then have to work in one of our classes to complete a resume and a letter of introduction. And so they get to the job fair somewhat prepared and with a better understanding of how they're going to present themselves. So at this time, we'd like to take a pause and ask you if you currently have a relationship with probation, parole, the reentry population, or other law enforcement agency in your area. And then if you want to just talk about what is the first step you could take to deepen or start to develop a relationship with any of these entities in order to establish credibility with the reentry population. So we're a little bit short on time. We have a few more slides, so we'll just give you a couple of minutes for this. Oh, 100% easy. Everybody has a relationship. That's awesome. Probably explains why you were interested in this webinar. And maybe you could be thinking about steps that you could take, and there might be time at the end for us to talk about that. So I'm going to move us along. So we've learned that tracking student outcomes, transition activities, and successes is so important in order to measure our progress and report to our key stakeholders. This too has been a challenge up until recently because all of the partner agencies use different types of database systems. Now, however, Salesforce is the common database used by everyone focused on reentry in our county, but Community Pro is the data management system used by our adult school and community college colleagues. So we are working with both companies now to ensure that these two systems are linked and developing the appropriate MOUs with the Office of Justice and Reentry and other partners to make that happen. Our goal is to be able to, not just make referrals, but check in on folks as they move in and through the systems that we operate. And this will give us a greater opportunity to do that. So here's a quick snapshot of last year's transition activities. And unfortunately, this slide is a bit incomplete, and I realize I sent in the updated version too late to make it into the final PowerPoint. But I can tell you that in Q4, we had 35 participants in the pilot. It is true that following the job fair in Q2, we had employers come back to interview 8 students, and 2 job offers were made. I can also report that in the calendar year 2018, we had a total of 19 inmates gain employment and 25 who enrolled in college after they were released. So our future goals, we really would like to create a more flushed out, service-oriented jail-based job center where we really could bring in additional partners into the facility to work on breaking down some of those barriers, getting them enrolled in, set up with their food stamps, CalFresh, and work on getting their driver's license, et cetera, et cetera. We don't do that now. We do pieces of it, and we bring those folks in during the job resource fairs, but we'd like to be able to do that on a more regular basis. We'd also like to create more options, particularly with regard to employment-based opportunities. And toward this end, we've applied for a WIOA Accelerator Grant and are planning this time around to respond to an RFP for employment to see if there is a way we can expand our services in the way I just mentioned, but also to continue with some of our programs directly with our inmate students once they are released. So we have one final chat for you, and since Karen, I was supposed to turn it over to Karen to do the second one, I'm going to turn it over to Karen to do the third one.
Thanks, Lindy. That's okay. You were on a roll. So let's chat. Have you been inspired to do anything in particular with this information? Do you have I need to go do that, or I need to think about that, or I need to talk to someone about that? Would you put that in your chat box and let us see what it is you're thinking about? I see a whole lot of people typing, so we're waiting, and we're going to be reading your thoughts. Connecting with additional agencies, that's awesome. That's definitely makes a difference. Very interested in the books. Thank you, Lindy, for sharing those titles. I've heard of the Games Criminal Plays also, and I think we're going to try the other one you mentioned. We haven't heard of that one, so thanks for mentioning that. Looking into Salesforce, yes. Lindy, I was wondering, did your county pay for Salesforce, or did you pay for it yourselves?
I believe funds from AB 109, I believe, were allocated for that specific purpose of getting everyone the ability to communicate with each other and having a way to track the people that we're serving.
That was great. Great.
If I could just mention while people are typing, Marion is asking how we track college enrollments. As I mentioned earlier, we have 2 reentry transition specialists, and we have 3 community college transition specialists, and we have 3 adult school transition specialists. So they meet very regularly, and with regard to our jail inmates, we do very specific warm handoffs, and everybody's keeping track of the students. And our challenge right now is that we're keeping track of these specific college enrollments on a spreadsheet because Salesforce doesn't talk to our other database. So eventually we'll be able to have that through the databases.
And I'll add to that, we have also a transition specialist through our community college who works with us, well, almost everywhere we are, whether it's our learning center or the jail or probation, day reporting center, and does similar things. So definitely reach out to your community college because many of them have special funding, whether it's state or federal, to do this kind of work.
All right. Lindy and Karen, thank you, and Josh, thank you all so very, very much. We really have appreciated the information. I think your examples and stories that you've shared of what the successes and challenges have been have really helped us to visualize things that we can do in our programs. And we just really appreciate that. We understand from this the importance of collaborating and working together and the partnership. So thank you again, and your contact information is here. Thank you for the participants for your questions, and we are over time, so I'm going to ask that you get the contact information here, provide it. We do have the entire presentation available for you to download as well. To reach out to Lindy and Karen, I know they would both be forever available to help you as you improve your reentry programs and build them based on their sharing of their wonderful experience. So thank you both so much again. And again, if you want to download the PowerPoint, you can go to the small little chat pod that is there on your left side, and you'll see the PowerPoint presentation there, and you can download that file. And then once we close out the webinar, you will be asked to complete an evaluation of the webinar. I'm going to let Vicki tell you about that, and then we want to just again thank you for your participation today.
Thank you, Cherise. Yes, so to complete the webinar evaluation, in the small pod just right to the right of the chat and left of questions at the bottom, you'll see a webinar evaluation. You can click on that and browse to it, or it will open immediately as soon as the webinar is closed out. The file, the PowerPoint that Cherise was mentioning, is directly above that. If you'd like to click on that, you can download that as well. Okay, thank you very much. And again, the recording will be posted on the CalPro calendar by early next week. And thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks all. Have a good one. Bye-bye.